Hey guys, this is Easy Rocker from Lucky Noobs, and today I want to talk to you guys about a new build that Nike and me have been playing around with and that I have kind of gotten into lately, which is for a very special version of a Magi Druid. Now you all know your Magi Druid, right? You know, like staff is your healing source, and you have that sword warhorn or sword axe still in there, like for backup weapons or like for certain utilities. But basically, what you do is you use your staff skills to fill up your celestial avatar, and then you use that for your main heals, right? And what the staff does basically is just he gives a little bit of kind of bursty direct heals, and he's basically there to fill up your celestial avatar. Now what this build is supposed to do is replacing these staff skills and instead using a very certain trait and a very certain aspect of this build to pump out regeneration instead. And this is something that has not really been done too much on Druid yet, because this was kind of the niche for the heal Ellie, pumping out regeneration. But we have come up with a build to do exactly that and still have all these pros that taking a Druid over heal Ellie has, like boons, like Grace of the Lands and all that junk. You know what I'm talking about. So how does this build work? Basically, we want to replace this staff. And what you see right now is me having my sword warhorn in my first weapon set. And what we are going to do is we are going to take this warhorn and bring it to the second weapon set. Now what this does is whenever we weapon swap, we will weapon swap back to the exact same weapon set. We will always be on sword warhorn. And what this does is, when you look at your traits, you all know Quick Draw. If you guys have been playing Druid before, you know what Quick Draw does, right? Quick Draw will basically reduce the cooldown of the next weapon spell that you use quite significantly. So this will cut the cooldown into just 1/3 of what it was. And that is really quite significant, and this is really quite core for this build, because what this build plays around of is this Call of the Wild skill. This is your Warhorn 5 skill, which gives Fury, Might, Swiftness, and if you trait it with Naturmagic, as we do right here, it will also give you regen. And it will actually give you quite a lot of regen as well. So by doing this, just by tweaking that a little bit, you can basically always weapon swap on cooldown and use your Call of the Wild. And the cooldown of 24 seconds will be cut down to 1/3 of that, which is below 10 seconds. So you can use this after every weapon swap. And whenever you weapon swap, you will pump out between 13 and 15 seconds of regen, depending on what build you use. And I will get into that in a second. What this does is that you basically pump out a lot of regen. You will stack up your regen to about 40 seconds, like 20 to 40 seconds roughly. And you will basically be a permanent source of regen. And these regen ticks will heal for quite a lot. The build that I'm currently on is a full Magi build. I use Transferent Rune Sigil on my sword. I use a Renewal Sigil on my Warhorn, because I'll be weapon swapping a lot, right? So this will really be triggered on cooldown. I use Monk Runes for the boon duration and also for the 10% extra outgoing heal effectiveness. And then the rest is straight out Magi. Like, this is all Magi, so I have as much healing power as I can have. You can further boost this with buff food like delicious rice balls or even bountiful sharpening stones. That will even further increase your regeneration uptime. Basically there will always be a source of healing, and this will fill up your celestial avatar really quick. You'll have enough time to cast celestial avatar as much as you can. So you still have all the healing that you would usually have with a staff build, but you will also have pretty massive regen ticks on top of that. And this actually brings you up to about 500 healing each tick, and that is pretty massive. That is quite the strong heal, and it has a lot of pros and cons that we will get into later. What is this really useful for though? Like, you will probably ask, like, Rocker, you're in a speedcore guild, and we don't really use heal-druids that much, but there is one particular encounter that we still use Magi Druids for, or that I at least think Magi Druid is really still very viable for, and that I think most competitive teams still are even using Magi Druids for, which is Matthias. Because Matthias is not quite the linear fight, and on Matthias it's somewhat hard to heal everyone, because people have to like move away, and it's kind of RNG whether you get like corruption and you have to move away from your team, and it's hard to still heal your teammates while you're gone. And with this build you will kind of supplement for that. Now, as I mentioned, there are a few varieties to this build. What I have come down to is basically taking full Magi and not really going too much into boon duration, because I want to keep these ticks potent, right? I want these ticks to be strong, and I want each of these ticks to do work, instead of rather making sure that people always have regen. So basically what I'm doing is I don't take a lot of boon uptime, I go full Magi, full healing power, and make these ticks do work. What you can also do, however, is you can go more into boon uptime, and that will actually make sure that even if you mess up your rotation, yes, this kinda has a rotation even though it's a healing druid, right? I know, it's crazy. But basically by getting extra boon duration, you can buff your boon uptime to the point where you can even take an additional source of regen, and that source would be your healing spring, right? If you trade a Treffer's expertise in your skirmishing trade line, and you take these exotic trinkets, which are Magi, and put platinum doubloons in them, this just kind of makes up for my lack of money to get minstrel gear. I'll actually make my back piece minstrel just for demonstration. You can actually get your uptime pretty high, and I will actually, you'll have to use bountiful sharpening stones for this to work. So right now my regen on this healing spring is 10 seconds, and that is what your regen has to be. Your regen cannot be lower than 10 seconds, and the simple reason for that is the way regen works is it's kind of like quickness. You have a certain stack cap for regen, and the game prioritizes the stack with the longest duration. So if there is someone else in your team who gives regen that is longer than 10 seconds, or that is like 10 seconds long, and yours is not 10 seconds long, or your regen duration is lower than 10 seconds, your regen will be won't be prioritized. The other guy's regen will be prioritized, even though yours might be stronger, even though you might have more healing power. And this is relevant because you always have a class that does that, and that is your chronomancer. Your chronomancer will always share out 10 seconds of regen whenever he has regen with his Signet of Inspiration. So you really want your regen duration to be longer than 10 seconds. And in order to do that, you kind of have to go into a bit of like a boon duration gear if you want to use Healing Spring. It doesn't really matter for your Windborn Notes trade, because these regen ticks are already longer than 10 seconds, actually pretty significantly longer. They're like, I think 13 seconds without the buff food and without the boon duration. So these won't be overwritten at all. They will never be, and I have tested this quite a lot. They won't be overwritten. Your teammates will have these regen stacks, and they will benefit from your strong regen. But if you do this, you have an extra source of regen, right? So instead of stacking your regen up to like 20 seconds all the time, and then maybe messing up your quick draw and having a 24-second cooldown on Call of the Wild, which will kind of result in your regen to run out, you will have an extra source of regen, which will basically guarantee that people will always have regen. Like, they will always have regen. This gets ridiculous. You stack up regen to like 1 minute of regen, 2 minutes of regen, and like, even if you like just decided to go AFK, your people would still get your regen. It's quite a lot of regeneration, really. But I just kind of found for myself that that's not really necessary, because since you lose healing power for every time that you replace a Magi trinket with one of these platinum doubloon trinkets, I would really rather go into my Magi trinkets, keep my healing power up, and just make sure that these ticks each do work. And I will also rather take Cliff of Rejuvenation, because whenever you remove a cliff from your build, that's a potential stack of Trace of the Lands that your team might be missing, which will be DPS downtime, and that kind of hurts my heart to see my people have less DPS. So yeah, I don't really personally like to use this, but that is definitely a viable build. And this will make up for your mistakes. This will make up for situations where you can't really account for you being able to always quick draw your Call of the Wild skill. Yeah, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna look at two POVs that we made, and we'll jump right in there right now. So here we are, and what you guys are seeing is two POVs that I made of my gameplay earlier today. On the top half of the screen you will see me playing the regular staff heal, while on the bottom picture you see me playing the regen build that we're talking about in this video. And it's always kind of hard to compare to Matthias runs because you have so much RNG in them. Like you have so many different factors making the fight harder or easier, depending on who gets corruption or poison, or who gets sacrificed. But are the health bars of my team. Look at the health bars of all the teammates in Sub-Squad 2, and what you will see is on the top video, they are static. They don't move, right? Whenever I don't heal, they don't really have that much of self-sustain. Except for their own heal, of course, but if that is not up, their health bar basically stays fixed in the location that it's in before I heal them. On the bottom screen, you can actually see the regen ticking. Like you will see that their health bars are in quite constant motion. So even if I get affected by the boss's RNG, and even if I get poison and I have to carry away corruption, you can still kind of see their health bars going up, just because of all the regen that I have stacked up during the fight. So this is what I think is the biggest advantage of the build. This kind of makes up for the RNG factor of this fight. That even if you get poison, your team will still have some income of healing. And this actually kind of results in a bit better scholar uptime as well. I mean, in this run obviously we wiped the one where I was on staff, but that's not really relevant. That doesn't really have anything to do with my healing, it's rather a matter of... But this kind of brings us back into our discussion. And in our discussion, we basically want to talk about the pros and cons of this build, to kind of wrap up this discussion, or even get a real discussion rolling about this. So what I have found to be the pros of this build, I will actually list them, and I will talk about each of them for a little while. First, the biggest pro I think is the steady healing, right? The regen gives you a very steady income of healing that goes on top of your celestial avatar heal. So basically you get the pro of having extra regen on top of all of your boons, on top of all of the healing you're already doing on a staff build. Basically all your celestial avatar heals, you're still going to use them, but you also have regen on top of them in case you're not there. So this basically takes the advantages that usually really the heal elementalist still had over the heal-druid, which was that he could just pump out massive amounts of regen and basically heal your team no matter where you are. And this druid build can kind of do the same thing, even maybe not at to the same extent. The second pro that I found was that the heals are, it kind of ties into what I said before, that the heals are independent from yourself. Even if you're not there, even if you have to do different tasks, like bring away corruption, carry away poison, or a teammate has to do a certain task that doesn't allow him to stand close to you and get your heals, they are still gonna have some healing done to them. And actually, like, quite a significant amount. 500 healing ticks, that's pretty strong, to be honest. The third pro that I found is that these HOTS kinda counter dots. Nice rhyme, I know. But basically what that means is healing over time, or a HOT, will counter incoming damage over time like a dot. This applies to basically any boss encounter that gives you conditions, which Matthias does, for example, because he gives you burning, he gives you poison, and it kind of just ticks against that. And what this does is that it will raise your scholar uptime. All your scholar buff classes, they will have a pretty steady counter to those damage over time effects, which will boost their scholar buff uptime. This also works like any boss that has an aura, like Veil Guardian. Like really all these bosses that have these damage over time effects on your teammates. And probably one of the most unnoticed or underrated effects of this build that I've not even talked about in this video so far is that it gives you extra boons. Like because Call of the Wild doesn't just give you regen, it actually gives you might, fury, and swiftness every time you use it. So in the background you'll see a video of me beating on a golem using nothing but weapon swap and auto attacks and weapon swap 5. And from time to time you can see my mouse cursor going over those, my fury, and you can actually see how much might this build gives on top of the regen. And the fury is just ridiculous, like you stack up to 3 minutes. You don't even have to take a fury pet anymore. This opens up opportunity for you to take like a different pet or something. Like for example right here, I'm playing with the mower that does the days, right, for extra CC. And I kind of use that as well on Matthias. And this might just help you to get these mechanics down better and might help your team do better on different mechanics. And you can do any pet really, like you could actually, the might is really helpful to supplement for your warrior. Especially on Matthias, he's kind of a boss where it's kind of hard for warriors sometimes to stack up your might, so this might even increase your might uptime. And swiftness, of course, it's always nice. It's not a necessity. You'll probably get it from some other source anyway, but this just kind of makes sure you'll have swiftness with this build, definitely. And also, this is a blast finisher. If you play with 2 Connie warriors, chances are pretty high there's going to be a fire field lying around under you. And chances are high you will blast even more might from that. And this kind of gives opportunity for more theory crafting, in my opinion. This kind of gives us the opportunity, in case there was somebody out there who found a build for warrior that did like, I don't know, 5k more DPS, but it would come at the cost of like 5 stacks of might average or something. This build could kind of make up for that. This could kind of make sure you still have the right amount of might uptime. But having talked about these pros, I want to get into the cons as well, as there are some cons to this, especially when it comes to Matthias. And like this is all kind of focused on Matthias because still I think Matthias is the one boss where you really kind of need a Magi Druid. So this is like the boss I'm kind of focusing on right here. What this build doesn't allow you to do is use your staff walls, right? You've already noticed, guys, this doesn't use a staff. Obviously, Magi Druids can use the staff wall for the Matthias jump attack and turn all these little projectiles that hurt your people into healing, which kind of gives the run a lot more smoothness. In my opinion, really. It makes it a lot easier when your druid does that, and this build cannot do it. There's just no way. You have no staff, no way for you to turn these projectiles into healing. However, when we played this, we never used 2 Magi Druids on Matthias. We used 1 Magi Druid, and the other Druid plays Berserker, and on a Berserker Druid you can use a staff. And it's actually pretty viable. So what we did, we just had the other druid use the staff, and he would be in charge of walls, and I would just pump out regen, and it would work just fine, and we still had staff walls. Just not as many, and it might not be 100% safe anymore to get every staff wall down, but there will be staff walls. Next con I noticed was that you kind of lack a panic heal, because you're kind of bound to a rotation here, right? Like if you don't quick draw your 5 skill, especially when you don't run boon food or like more boon duration, if you mess up your rotation, you kind of have a lack of regen, and yeah, that kind of results in you not being able to just like panic heal. Like if, for example, if I use the staff Magi heal, I would, if I saw a teammate falling low HP, I would use my staff 3 and just to get him that little bit of burst healing. And this build doesn't really have that. If a person gets a lot of burst damage, like if he gets hit by a Hadouken or something, unless you can pop a Celestial Avatar and or your utility heal spell, there's not really much that you can do to help him. However, you have so much Celestial Avatar, this barely really was that noticeable to me at least, but it's still there. I mean, it's still a con to this build. You don't have these panic heals. Next con of this build is you don't have sword axe, so obviously you will lack some sword axe utilities, which is mainly the backup reflect for Matthias, for example. Like, you can't do backup reflect since you don't have reflex on you. It's that simple. Same thing for like X pulse or something, which is also why this would probably not be perfect for bosses like Slothosaur, where you are kind of heavily depending on your druids to use your X pulse at the right time and moment. You cannot do this with this build, so definitely a con right there. And the last con that I found was that this build will probably lack from low tier gear. So if you were running a full exotics magi build, as I know a lot of you probably are, as I always used to run, and I always tell people, you don't have to buy ascended gear for magi because like, save the money, it's not worth it. Like, you cap out on healing power. It will be kind of noticeable on this. Because there's a huge difference between a 500 regen tick and a 400 regen tick, and having, like, it won't kill the build. I'm pretty sure this wouldn't kill the build, but it will definitely reduce the potency of your regen, and that will kind of make this build a bit weaker. So to wrap this video up, I think this is a great supplemental build for heal-druid. This is a completely new playstyle for heal-druid, and it's really a lot of fun, and I quite enjoy it. I think this will help a lot of teams that are new to raids, because the regen helps especially newer players to get mechanics right. It gives you that little bit of extra slack for your team. I would love to hear what you guys think about this build. If you want to try this, leave a comment, maybe even make a video. I would love to see someone else's POV on this, and hear your guys' thoughts about this. Also, I want to thank Nike for originating the thought of even creating a regen druid. He's actually, the first time I got in contact with this kind of druid, that was on Nike's stream, and we did a lot of theory crafting from there. And so yeah, really credit to whom credit is due. And I hope I'll see you guys later.